Well, President Trump says that he will be creating a commission to create and promote patriotic education in America's schools. So what do you think about that? Should we make a push for a more positive view of American history? Text us at 602-444-1212. Let's give you a little background on this because there has been a recent push to emphasize the harsh realities of slavery in lesson plans to American children, teaching critical race theory in schools, which is rooted in the idea that the law and legal institutions in America are inherently racist. Trump says that this type of education is designed to make students ashamed of American history and liken the curriculum to, quote, child abuse. So he's creating the 1776 Commission to develop and promote patriotic education. Now, we do have to be clear here. There is no talk of wiping curriculum on slavery from the classroom. Just making sure there is a positive lesson plan on American history as well to accompany that. So what do you think about this? A lot of people have been weighing in this morning on this particular topic. Willis on Facebook says, it's about time we go back and educate students about the true history, good or bad. The news reported that 70% of our students didn't know 6 million Jews were murdered during the Holocaust. And yeah, certainly that was a tough report to hear. That's history in another country. It needs not be wiped, and we need to remember this stuff. I love it. It's about time we stand up to a mass indoctrination of our children. They need to be taught how great America is. Thank you, President Trump. Flag emoji, heart emoji, heart emoji, Anita says. And a lot of people weighing in on this one for sure today. So try and keep things civil as we continue this discussion here this morning. What do you think? Do you think that this pro-patriotic education movement is a good thing for our kids? Keep weighing in. Again, 602-444-1212 is the place to text.